Megamaniacs, this is Mr. MegaManFan, and we're back on Genesis Does with a weird one that's called Gynoug, or is it Gynoug, or is it Gynoug? I really don't know, because there's no pronunciation guide. It's spelled Gynoug, so I'm just going to go with Gynoug for now, but it did get a release as Wings of War in the United States. Now, apparently, it also got released under that title in Europe, but it's kind of hard for me to tell that other than the Wikipedia entry that claims it, because this is labeled as a European ROM, and it's the only version of the game that I have. I don't own a physical cartridge from Japan, Europe, or the United States, and I don't have any other ROM other than this one, so either Wikipedia is wrong, which they've often been, or this game was released multiple times in Europe under different titles, which I admit is a possibility. According to that same Wikipedia entry, here is the alleged plot of the game. The heavens are being attacked by the demons of Ickis, led by a being known only as the Destroyer. The Angel War must bring the fight to Ickis itself and put an end to the Destroyer's dark plans. This honestly leaves more questions than answers. Why is Ickis attacking the realm of heaven? What did the inhabitants of heaven do to piss Ickis off, and why is Ickis thirsty for revenge? Where and how did Ickis find the Destroyer and summon him to do his bidding? What reason could the Angel War have for taking up the cause instead of getting an entire army of angels to defend heaven? Why are they entrusting this to just one angel to do the job that should be done by the entire realm of heaven if they're all under attack by Ickis and his Destroyer? So many questions here. But really, you don't need to know any of that because this is a side-scrolling shoot-'em-up. The plot is basically irrelevant. You do here what you would do in any side-scrolling shoot-'em-up of the genre, then or now. You move from one side of the screen to the other on auto-scroll, picking up power-ups from the enemies you destroyed along the way, switching weapons when and where it's necessary to use a different shot, and then getting through each mid-stage boss and end-stage boss to make it to the next level. Given my unfamiliarity with Gynoug, I did not make that much progress. Each time you see me play through it in this video, I did a little bit better than the time before, but I don't think I ever reached a full stage conclusion because every time I died, I went all the way back to the beginning. So unlocking progression in this game is a little bit punishing. It's probably a game that you would want to play with save states unless you're playing an actual physical copy on a Genesis or an analog or whatever clone system you happen to have. I imagine this game would be punishing on some of the cheaper, poorer quality clones though, like the AtGames Genesis. I don't know if it could handle the multiple objects on the screen, the parallax scrolling, the soundtrack, the sound effects, and all reproduce them faithfully. I think you need a high quality system for the sheer amount of things that's going on in Gynoug, or Wings of War, whatever you choose to call it. And yes, I checked, this is no relation to Wizard of War. I wish it was, but they're completely different developers, they're completely different games. If there was a Genesis version of Wizard of War, I would be playing it right now. The graphics were kind of blocky and simple even for the time, but the option to either play cooperatively or duel with an opponent on the opposite side of the screen and clear all the enemies, and that voice that constantly taunts you, that was a great arcade game. It still holds the test of time to me. This stage really ramps up the difficulty quite quickly with these relentless waves of enemies right before the mid-stage boss. Pro tip, if you're playing this for the first time and you get to this turtle looking thing, the only place it's vulnerable is underneath its neck. You can't shoot it at the top, you can't shoot the shell, you have to attack it from just below the jaw. See those yellow sections? Those are the ones that you want to hit. Anything else, it's just going to bounce off and do no damage. So go for the weak point, go for the neck, go for the jugular, and you'll knock out that mid-stage boss and continue your progression. Honestly, with the weapon shot choices, I don't know why you would use anything other than the standard shot, which quickly evolves to a spread shot. And at one point during this opening stage, it even modifies itself to being a forward and backward simultaneous shot, so you can get the enemies behind you as well as in front of you. And you will need that because there are some hunter-seeker waves of enemies that will track you across the screen instead of just coming straight towards you. You can't rely on the pattern staying the same forever. There's something about Gynoug that both looks sophisticated and simple at the same time. I've already commented on the parallax scrolling that you can see in this cave that we're flying through for the first stage. It's an impressive looking effect, although it's not overly detailed. You can see the patterns repeating every few frames, especially in the middle sections. I know that would be a memory saving trick, but then why would you go to the trouble of using a Mode 7 graphical effect that would take up more memory because you'd have to animate each tile in a different rotation and then combine those all together at the same time as they're scrolling to the left? If you're saving memory, why would you do that? And then why would you do it for only 7 or 8 seconds of the opening stage? I've got to assume that's an effect they come back to later in the game, otherwise why waste the memory for it? Another thing that's very sophisticated and unsophisticated at the same time is the power-ups. They greatly increase your shot, but they look very generic when you collect them. They're just circles and feathers and the letter E. They don't even have any style or flair surrounding them. It's just like, here's a thing. Move yourself over it. Now you've got the thing. And a loadout option like some of the other shooters, Gradius 3 for example, that would be really nice if it let you pick which weapon you start with, which order the power-ups cycle through. That would give you some sort of choice and some level of challenge knowing which one was the best choice for each stage, instead of having to start the same way at the same place every time, collect the same power-ups in the same order. You get no flexibility here. You just have to take what you're given. All that said, I will take what I'm given as far as Gynoug goes because it is a shooter that you do improve with over time. The plot seems a little wacky, but it's certainly not as over the top as a Choaniki shooter and not as cute and cartoony as a Parodius shooter. So there's something restricted and refined about it compared to those games. And if you're looking for something really campy, you'd want to play one of those instead. But if you're looking for a basic shoot 'em up with a not overly high degree of difficulty and average to above average enemy design, but in other ways a little bit simplistic, this is probably the middle of the pack. Not great, not terrible, acceptable. The only challenge would be finding a copy if you want it physically. That might set you back a little bit. A loose cartridge goes for $43, a complete in-box version goes for $108. So if you want to know why I don't have a physical copy of Wings of War, there's your answer. I just don't have the budget to spend that much on one average at best shoot 'em up. Not great, not terrible, just average. I can't sink 40 to 100 bucks into a game like that when I can play it like this instead. If you're the type of person that wants to own every shooter that was ever made for Sega Genesis or Mega Drive, put it on your hit list because it's certainly not the worst. And if you're spending that kind of money to get them all, it's at least more affordable than some of the other ones I've talked about on this show. I'm Mr. MegaManFan. This has been Genesis Does, and as always, I thank you for watching. Like, share, subscribe, comment on the video, watch another one if you're here already. All those things help the channel grow. I'll see you next Thursday for another episode.